Hello and welcome. My name is Mbikudi from Mbikudi, and today I wanted to talk to you about employing as an employer. It's a topic that I really wanted to discuss with you because I know that many of you follow me on my social media, and have asked me questions about how is it for you or how was it for me as an employer, and also what was my experience, and especially what was the point of view of a small business. So therefore, I decided to do this video to talk to you about those reality, but also to really comes in the real fact and also the reality, and how it could be something quite exciting, but it has a lot of struggles with it as well. So obviously having employees in your business enables you to move faster. It can help you to do the work faster, and you can share the tasks force, and you can do so much more. But sometimes as well, you can have the boost of having someone else creativity, someone else energy, and also someone else doing things, maybe seeing things that you may not be able to see. Therefore, it's an advantage, definitely. Now, the problem with a small business is, as a small business, obviously over time what you have is you have a flow of cash, or your cash flow is very can be very challenging in terms of it moves with the period, or depending on the opportunities that you get, and depending on whether you're able to duplicate those opportunities. Now, when it comes to employing, so there's many ways you can do so. So you can either employ self-funded, which we've done. I suppose right now we've actually done the 3 ways, and I'm going to explain to you the 3 ways, and also the advantages and the disadvantages of those 3 ways. So now the first way we employed was by employing someone through a grant. So we secured a grant to run activities, and we were able to employ someone. So with that way, it was slightly easier in terms of the fund and the resources for the salary was already in place. Therefore, it was still the difficult task was now to motivate the person to understand the agenda. So you've got time to train the person, and I guess something that we might have done differently was to maybe have a longer term, because you need to think about the time to train the individual, to make sure that because the first few months when they work, their performance can be limited in terms of you've got the salary that you're paying constantly, but as the employer works with you, the productivity increases. So therefore you have someone who comes with you that you need to train, you need to put your resources there, but you need to factor in, especially in the funding application, the fact that someone needs to stop their day job and train the person. And if the person is stopping their day job to train someone else, that means that between the 2 of you, productivity is reduced. So it means that not only the working staff or or me at the time, my productivity was reduced, but also the staff employed couldn't actually have a productivity yet, because it was during the training period. But also how the training is done is also a way of boosting the confidence, because one of the challenges that I found myself was that you get asked a lot of questions. So you get asked a lot of questions by the staff, or because you're the sole person that answers the question, so therefore you're pulled left and right, and depending on whether you also have a team of volunteers and staff, it means that you've got quite a few things to do, and it's something it can be quite challenging. So then the second element was again employing someone either with a funding for the government, or in order to remove, for example, unemployment for young people, or for for groups who usually have difficulty to find employment. So it could be people with special needs or anything like that. And this one is the most challenging in my view, because with the first one you can still choose who you're employing, in terms of you can really choose the pool of people, so you can really spend the time to employ. But on the second, you have to really put a lot of resources in. So you need to put your time, you need to put the training in place, but also there's that element of the productivity of the person can actually take up to about 3 months or more sometimes for them to reach productivity level. But when I talk about productivity, it's linked with yours, because if you're spending the time training, or another member of staff is spending the time training the person, it is a heavy weight on it can be a heavy weight on the company. Now, you hear me talking about the productivity, and then you're wondering, why am I talking about the productivity? So it will come especially as a factor when we come on to the third element, and this is where I will talk about where the real struggles really come in. And I think some of the struggles that you find on the third element can also either impact or interrelate with the other ones as well, which is, now with the first case, you have obviously the fact that you've got productivity and you have to train the person, but also you have to be realistic of whether you can extend the contract once it's finished, because if you're not realistic on whether you can do so, then it can be a very strong impact on the cash flow of the company. Moving on to the third one, and this is the third sector where some of the issues that I will talk about would also link with the other ones, is when you employ someone from your own pocket as a business. Now, it is a very, very, very hard decision, and to be honest, it's one that I lost sleep over before coming to that place of actually being able to employ someone either part-time or full-time for 3 months or for 6 months or for a year. It's something that I had struggled with as an employer, especially as a small business, because it's a case of you have someone coming to work for you, therefore your duty is to pay that person. Your duty is to ensure that the person's needs are met, meaning that they have a salary, they can rely on the salary, and they can also rely on to the business to be able to help them grow and help them thrive. Now, what happened as a small business is you might find yourself in a place where, as the cash flow reduces for some period, and especially with employee, what happened is, especially if they have also a power of spending within the company, it's something that really needs to be, considered carefully, because the same consideration that you as the person who started it all, or you as the employer, or you as the manager might take that decision, the employee will take it very differently. I don't want to say very lightly, because they do take their job seriously, but not in the same regard as you, obviously. Now, it gets to the point where you realize that you have to pay someone a full rate, and obviously it's very important to pay people the minimum wage, and this is something that's put on the employer. So you have to pay the minimum wage for the person working with you. But also what you find is then that no matter what happens, they need to be paid. So therefore, whether there are sales that come in or not, depending on how the contract is set, you still need to pay the person. And in some cases, I've found myself with staff where I've had to pay staff members a higher salary than me while they were working maybe half the hours that I was working, or a lot less hours than I was doing. And obviously, in terms of, for me, the paying the staff came first, and obviously making sure the business is running came first, and I was making all the sacrifices. But what happened is that it impacts on your morale, and it also impacts on your energy level. It means that you will burn out eventually. But also the other thing is then when you let the staff know and understand that as a small business, they really need to work hard, for example, to bring in the sales, for example, but they really need to work hard to make sure that the services are rendered correctly so that we can be rebooked, so we can be called back. Now, what happened is that the staff, it takes them a while to understand why it's very important, and I do think it's important to put the requirement from the beginning. And one thing that I've learned is that when I employ a staff member, to maybe have a small level of sales requirement in their post as well. Because if you do not do that and you explain to a person, for them it's almost like they are so accustomed to seeing big company, large company, and especially working with larger scale companies where there's an investment, there's a funding, and it's a larger organization. But now when someone comes from that mindset and works with a small organization, they're used to maybe there's a lot of idling time, there's a lot of like, taking breaks over and things like that, or even like, using the phone during work hours and stuff like that. Whereas a big company has everything to make sure that these don't happen. As a small company, you won't have all the elements to ensure that either the time wastage doesn't happen, or that you eventually do make the sales, because regardless of whether you're working with the staff or not. Now, the other element is actually when you're training the staff member, and in my case, I was the person who looked after, I oversaw the sales as well. So it means that within the sales time, the sales team or the sales will be impacted while you're training a staff member. So bear in mind that when you do your projection and you have to take in a new staff member, that your productivity will be impacted by having done so. And it's something that I have to learn the hard way. And also what it does is then, as the productivity is impacted, and also especially when you're having events and you're bringing extra external workforce or external staff, as well as external things such as caterers and things like that, you really need to be strict on what you're choosing and why you're choosing it, and how you need to negotiate your contracts, because otherwise it's very heavy, because any shortfall fell on you. And for me, for so long, I felt like all the shortfalls were falling on me. Therefore, I could get assistance to maybe fund someone else's salary, but it's very rare to see a possibility to fund your salary. So I had the opportunity 1 year out of the 3 or 4 years that we've been running. So for 1 year, I had the possibility of funding my salary. And really that year, we went like crazy, honestly. So we were able to triple our, I think it was triple or double our, I think it was triple our sales turnover, simply because I was focused and I knew that my salary was coming in. I didn't have to worry about it. But now, coming from the fact of you have to worry about other people's salary, and you have to worry about your own, and make sure that everything is running. And there's also having a premises, and this is something that I will talk about in another video, having a premises. It can be quite hard for a social enterprise entrepreneur, and especially in our business, we're a social enterprise as well. So similarly as any other businesses, we feel the same strains and the same resources. And in many cases, I looked upon other social enterprises who started before me, and I looked at images or pictures of the entrepreneurs when they started versus maybe 2 or 3 years along the line. And you could see the strain, and you can really physically see the strain on their faces. You can see the strain of the responsibility, and you can see how much of an effort they've had to put in order to push their enterprise forward. So in a many ways, it's taught me to obviously appreciate the fact that, you know, when you see a small organization going, and understand the fact that they work really hard. But in this equally, this video is actually because it's very frustrating as well as an entrepreneur. And I do think as an employer, you do need to take that into consideration. And I think we need to break the silence about all those barriers that we face, all those barriers that lead us into depression, for example, or all the barriers that lead us into burnout, because burnout is real, and depression, but also it can also lead you to losing interest into the business, because you're basically you're bringing in business barely to just pay for all the expenses or all the expenditure, or all the roof expenditures as well. So with having said that, I would also add that if you've got any question, do not hesitate to contact us. And I think this was an introduction, and in another video I will delve in deeper into the information. And the reason I'm doing these videos now are because I do believe that the new generation of entrepreneurs need to understand and need to know exactly what's ahead of them, and need to prepare for that, as well as preparing for the fact of any other element. For instance, I was prepared for not having sales for the first few months of business, but then there are many other elements that I found the hard way. And I really wish I had taken the time to be prepared about it. And having said that, I did take a lot of training, a lot of preparation, and I still speak to a large network of entrepreneurs and other business owners. And that's what led me to the conclusion. And the day I made the realization that what I felt, I wasn't the only person feeling it, I thought, I need to break the silence, and I need to talk about my experience, about how it is. So thank you very much for watching. And if you've got any questions, do not hesitate to contact us. Thank you.